Hello, Connective. Welcome back. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you don't know how I work, I put a bunch of cards on the table from different decks and let them tell a story and we talk about it. If you like the content, feel free to subscribe. Don't smash anything. With that being said, let's get into this reading. So we're back for a empath empowerment reading. This one's going to be a little bit different. Got some different cards, but also some cards that have been really talking. And back when I was doing the other empath empowerment, empath readings, I don't know, sometimes I felt like I needed to just say more. Like I would say how something was, but not maybe, why or how to do something. And, I was trying to limit the cards on the table as well. I mean, we got pretty good messages too when we did, like general readings with other cards with the empath empowerment cards. I did like those as well, but I want to do something that was more like almost more empath, but with more cards. So first thing I want to do is we have the empath empowerment deck back out again. And instead of trying to minimize, we'll just see what comes out. I actually like to pull these so I don't get too many. And so we can control the amount of cards. So they are shuffled. I usually just keep moving them around until I'm ready to put them out. So that's what's going on right now. Apparently they need to be moved around a little bit more. But yeah, from this deck, we're going to grab, actually almost ready. We're going to grab a few cards from this deck, and then we're going to go to a few more decks, get some messages, and actually have a deck that's not new, but it's out, and we're going to combine it with the blind spot. So we'll talk about it. Let's see what's underneath. You can handle this. We're going to take that one off the bottom like that. All right, and then we're going to take the other two off the top. So we have let yourself receive support. I can already tell this is going to be a different kind of reading. Stop sensory overload. So we have gotten that card before. I think these are fairly new. We might have gotten the one in the middle. But that's the underneath card. So that's kind of almost like what we're trying to see. That, is underneath. So I got some cards on the floor, people. What's happening? All right, this is too many cards, so we're not going to take any of them. And they're all on the top, but no. Okay, it's not your turn. Okay, so now we're going to go with the energy. These are shuffled too. I might just go one or two. The new deck on my left, I'll show it later, is the empath activation cards. So that's the deck that I brought out. That's not new, but hasn't been around. I'm going to try to go for jumpers on this one. We'll see what comes out. I'm not going to terrorize this deck as if it doesn't want to talk. That was more me being clumsy. You know what? Yeah. We'll just see. We'll see what it's doing. Right now it's acting up. Here. Maybe it's me that's acting up. We'll see. All right. Well, that's out and back in again. All right. So let me see if we can just get a tighter hand on this. Let's see if we can get it to just say something. It doesn't have to. This is empath empowerment. We like energy, but like I said, we're not gonna go after this deck here. We can always get to it later in the extended. Okay. So actually we're going to go with, you know what? Yeah, let's, so this is the Alice the Wonderland deck again. The empath empowerment cards is obvious, but I think of them also as like geared more towards empaths. But then also the energy cards I feel like are basic energy. And these cards I feel like are more of like your perception of things. And so I've been wondering like how these cards are going to interact with the empath empowerment cards. We're going to take a look at that before we pull from the Moon Manifestation deck. So let's see. We're just going to go for one card on this one as well. What do we got? A moment's regret. All right. I'm going to go back to this. All right. And yes, let's get the moons. Let's just get the signs out there. For this one, there is going to be, again, they're already shuffled. There is going to be one extended, but I'm going to address each sign in that extended. So let's see if anything doesn't want to fall out, or we like them to jump out. We might just pull 3 cards on this one. Yeah. All right, maybe. Well, they're definitely mostly shuffled. So you know what I'm going to do? Just going to cut them from here. We're going to pull one from the bottom. Which one's this one? First quarter moon in Cancer. Push through any insecurity. Okay, that's the picture backwards. Okay. And then off the top, we've got last quarter moon in Taurus. Be proud of yourself. Wow. New message on that one. And then also off the top, we have last quarter moon in Leo. Lighten up. Lighten up. Well, this is definitely an empath reading. We might go for those maybe later on in the extended, but this message is pretty clear. I mean, we've had messages before about taking care of yourself, you know. This is talking about receiving support, but allowing yourself to receive support. And this one is encouraging you that you can go forward, and we'll get to those more in depth. But this one is telling you to stop sensory overload, which, you know, brings you back to that self-care, a little bit different than these. So the card again of, you know, don't forget who you are, make sure you protect, or, you know, whatever you need to do to be an effective empath, you know, that card is coming out too. But this one's talking about pushing through insecurity. This one's talking about being proud of yourself, and this one's talking about lightening up. So it's almost like there's somebody who feels like, or probably is, doing things on their own. Yeah, it's funny. It kind of reminds me of me. Like with this channel, you know, it's just me. And the messages lately have been like, well, you don't have to do it alone. There's people out there that'll help you, you know, and I'm like looking around like, okay. Right? And, you know, this reading is kind of like speaking to me in the way of, you know, if you choose to do it alone, then you can handle this. And I'm not necessarily taking that as like a direct message to me or anything. I mean, I already know I'm not going to do anything I can't handle. But, you know, honestly, this is all encouragement. This is all encouragement. So, you know, it kind of tells me too that I need to pull some more cards, because this seems on the table from what it's doing right now. It looks really easy. Like, oh, just be easy on yourself, and, you know, don't be insecure, and be proud, and, you know. But I have a feeling that the reason why these cards are on the table is because there's something that's, you know, there's a block, or there's somebody is, you know, maybe accidentally sabotaging themselves, or maybe, you know, through being the empath, but not really honoring that. And by honoring that, I mean, you know, doing the things sometimes that you need to do to protect your energy, or to whatever it is that you need to do as an empath. There's a lot of things. I mean, a lot of people talk about being empaths, but they don't really talk about like what they do to, I guess for lack of better words, cope with that. You know, I mean, this comes with stuff. It's not just about I'm an empath, you know, it's about all the things that, you know, you have to go through as an empath because of the nature of the gift. And yeah, I'm going to call it a gift. So this is a reminder of that, like, hey, take care of yourself kind of thing. But it's also, like I said, it's presenting as if there is resistance. I'm just wondering, like, where I should go with this. I think, because I really want, it's funny because all these cards on the table are encouraging, but I really want to pull something encouraging, which is kind of like, it's making me see the side of of this reading that we're talking about. I did bring the magnifying glass for these colored cards with white letters. I'm going to read this. A moment's regret, nostalgia, idealizing the past, fearing you've made a mistake. So when I saw nostalgia earlier, it kind of reminded me too of like someone who's sort of thinking of almost like, the best of times. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times, thinking back. It's like, this almost looks like change. This looks like, okay. You know what? This is weird. But a lot of people don't like change. And I guess I do think of it as change. A long time ago, I embraced change because I did realize the resistance to it, that I had. But more importantly, I just didn't like the idea of myself like resisting change. I think there's a really deep part of me that knows that everything changes, and so it's unnatural for me to kind of like fight that. And so at some point I kind of made the decision to, I guess for lack of better words, embrace it, if you want to call it that. But since then, and it took a long time, but I've realized also that change, people think of change as like they go from something to something different. And a lot of times they kind of, it's kind of like, the devil versus the devil that you don't know. You know what you've been through, you won't die. So going this way to, just seems more scary because, you're either like, there's always a fear, like people are going to lose something. They have to give something up, which is the same thing to them. It's going to be harder in some way. Whatever that thing is that people put on it, because if you stood 10 people next to each other, it would probably be different for most or all of them as far as what change actually is. But we perceive it as the difference between what we started with and then what we ended with. Wow, this is different, this is change. But people say like, with every ending comes a new beginning, and I don't really think about change as change anymore, but transformation. It does, especially the more drastic the change, but really it is going to turn into something else. And what it does turn into probably largely depends on what you do with it. This reminds me of like when people are in relationships and they think that because they started a relationship with somebody that they don't have to do anything. They don't have to take care of it. They just figure, well, I have that now. I can go look for something else. Usually they're looking for another significant other because that's what they do. But let's just say they're not. Let's just say that they just start a relationship and then don't think they don't have to do anything else. They just think, I don't know what they think, to be honest with you, because people like that, they know that the other person is doing more work than them. They know that the other person is pretty much taking care of them, either emotionally or however else. Maybe it's that thing of, well, I've got this, so I can just do whatever. I was going to say the triggers aren't talking, but we had one damn near fly onto the floor, so we're going to see what that is. But this is the last time we're going to go through this deck. So we also are going to go through the shadow. I want to look at it, but right now I want to know what's going on in the shadow deck. So for right now, because I have a feeling that this is the the hesitation, yeah, it almost does look intentional. Like it's not, whoops, I'm blocked, I can't move forward. This is kind of like you knowing that you don't want to step forward. Why? Is it the actual change? Because you could look at it how you wanted to. If you wanted to, you could look at it like this is going to be the best thing ever. And you could just do that every single time. I mean, you know, it might be a little different for you than what you might have thought like was going to happen or whatever. But a lot of times if you're really on a path, well, you're always on a path, but you know, you can go down the wrong path and you know, I hear you get swung right back onto the path that you're supposed to be on. Like, it's just a matter of time, and it depends on how much you want to resist, how much you want to, you know, fight that. You got a fork in the road, that place looks scary, you don't want to go down there. What's the trigger? When I feel overwhelmed and not in control, my behaviors become manic and compulsive. Okay, so this isn't even like, oh, there's a terrible person and they're treating me bad. Like this could be you. Especially like, you know, we're talking about with empaths and how they get to be well, sensitive. They take on other people's energy and they can get overwhelmed. You know, again, stop sensory overload. Stop sensory overload. So this is part of this, but I'm wondering what else. Okay. Addictions. Think about the emotions you are trying to cover up. Deal with those emotions, process, heal, and release them. All right. Before I even go on the next card, I'm just going to say something. If you're an empath and you're pulling in other people's emotions, it doesn't always have to be, but a lot of times people say that the reason why you're so strongly pull those emotions in is because somehow you identify with them. If you have somebody that went through something, I like to use the example of cheating because it's something everybody could get on board with, right? So like you have a friend, so this could even be like a stranger, but let's just say, you know, because you're going to deal with this as an empath, let's just say it's a friend, somebody you're close to, somebody you're in the room with, somebody who's upset about the fact that somebody else cheated, right? And then you have that same thing because you haven't actually healed from it yet. And so you feel what they're feeling so intensely. You know, and a lot of times we talk about, you know, as an empath, are you feeling their emotions or yours? Well, maybe you're feeling both, right? But you know, this is basically saying to deal with those emotions, to process and heal and release them. At least then it's backwards. At least then, if you did take on those emotions, or like I wanted to say, if you choose to take on those emotions, at least you know what's theirs and what's yours. You know, at least that you're not experiencing it so profoundly that you can't help your friend because you still haven't processed your own stuff. I mean, I'm not going to say that you have to be perfect, you know, everything has to be processed before you go out into the world. But this is actually talking about addictions, which kind of tells me sometimes that this particular emotion or whatever emotion we're discussing for this is something that you're using for comfort. It's something that it doesn't have to, it's the sage. It doesn't have to be even like a cheating thing. Like it could just be something that you're using for comfort, something that allows you to, God, there's a lot of things. Get out of healing, play small. What are we talking about here? I feel overwhelmed and not in control. My behaviors become manic and compulsive. So it could be something along the lines of anxious or compulsive or manic. Maybe you're one of those people that, you know, you start to get flustered, you run late, or you start to get flustered and do anything or everything. I mean, it says manic. So it's one of those things where, again, like part of this is telling you to calm down, right? So, and insecurity too. So there's, again, some relation of what you're dealing with that you feel some way about, and that's part of the reason why you're being drawn in emotionally. The other one is victim mentality. So the universe wants what's best for you, and you, not the worst. Change your perspective. Okay, so a lot of times too, things will happen where things will happen over and over. Not the same thing, but you'll start to look at it as something that looks like bad luck or something like that. And, you know, you're kind of like, this always happens. Like, back to where we were. The victim mentality. Maybe you don't really feel like you're a victim, but you acknowledge that something always happens to you, or it's kind of always this way. I have like 1,000 examples that I could give you, but really the bottom line is that all right, this is gonna, I don't know if this is gonna help, but sometimes things are supposed to be a certain way, and that's why they present the way they do. So as an example, let's just say that you wanted to belong to some kind of community, and you tried several things, over the course of the years, but somehow, when you got into these places, you were either sort of forgotten about, or maybe even shunned, or just didn't work out for you. It was just a place you didn't want to be, something like that. And in your brain, you weren't like, oh, I'm always alone. So not necessarily the victim mentality, but you could be thinking, this always happens every time I try to join a group, and you don't even have to feel like really emotional about it. You could just acknowledge that, here we go again. I forgot that this happens, and it's possible, But the fact that this is saying change your perspective, whether or not something like that is supposed to happen, maybe it was destined, maybe you went in there with a certain kind of whatever and people were playing off of you, and then this is what happens over and over and over again. Who knows? But either way, things like that build momentum. This is the snowball I'm always talking about. So if you give it power, you talk about it, you acknowledge it, you make it a thing, you roll around in it, it's going to be a little bit more, it's going to have a little bit more velocity than if it was something you just thought once and then forgot about. So changing your perspective isn't just changing your perspective today and then hoping that it changes tomorrow. It's changing your perspective long enough so that those things can not happen anymore. So, I kind of feel like patience is on the table, but I'm not going to look for it right now. Yeah, but this is saying, yeah, that is weird. I do feel like there's patience on the table. It might pop up in one of these readings, but yeah, if you're going through anything like this, you do need to be patient with yourself as an empath. Well, for me, I will sometimes, especially if I'm going through like each step of what's happening and I'm seeing every little individual thing, sometimes, especially if there's a lot of emotions involved, it might take me a while to process the big picture of that. And I don't give myself a hard time. I don't care how long it takes. I just allow the new realizations to come in, and I deal with those as I can, as they come. Being patient with yourself. Emotionally overreacting. You're overthinking, which is causing a flood of unnecessary emotions. So, again, you could be thinking something, you could be rolling around in it. It could be creating more emotion, which is causing this thing to move faster. And, whatever it is, because this situation could be a lot of things. Definitely seems like a choice that somebody made, that, or maybe a choice that somebody like was made for them, that they're a little bit regretting. And, looking back on things, and again, making it seem like it's a little bit easier back there than it might be right now. But again, where is the look to the future? Like, where is the, it's really easy, they say hindsight's 20/20. It's really easy to look back and think, oh, that was so great. Sometimes people don't even remember why they're not in it anymore or whatever. But it could also be too, where is it, that addiction of, much easier to not look at what's coming and run away from that. Easier to look back and say, oh, you know, I really miss that thing that I had before that I don't have anymore. And then, of course, distracting you can't look at the future and the past at the same time, because you'd be looking at the present. But even then it would be skewed, because it would be a mixture of what you choose to remember, or what emotion you want to put on when you think's going to happen. And again, a lot of people do that and they don't even pay attention to like what's right now, you know. And I mean, being proud of yourself and lightening up, I mean, that is kind of, I think, part of being in the moment. Because in order to, a lot of times when people do know that they need to lighten up, they have to like constantly remind themselves in that moment. And on top of that, you know, again, being proud of yourself, it's not exactly easy. Sure, you could have like something you accomplished and that's great and you could be proud of yourself, but could you be proud of yourself like every day or every week, or, you know, just because you're a good parent or whatever's going on? Like, I mean, I know that society and we as people and our family and God knows who else, you know, assume certain things out of us. But are we proud of ourselves when we accomplish those things? Do we give ourselves a pat on the back and say, hey, you know, we really went out of our way today to play with our child, or to do this, or to show up for that baseball game, or to be there for our spouse, or to really help their boss out when they didn't have to, you know, just things like that? Or do we go, oh, I'm proud of myself? You know, I mean, most of the time people get pride out of like sticking up for themselves and in confrontations and stuff like that. Can we just pat ourselves on the back and say, you know what, I did a good job? I do that sometimes. I mean, I don't do it all the time, but especially in a situation where I expected more of myself, like if I had a bunch of stuff that I wanted to do, but I didn't get it all done. But I see what I got done and how long it took me. And I kind of go, you know what? You could have stopped right in the middle and you didn't. You finished all this other stuff and you were going to stop after this thing, but you kept going. So the fact that you added all that other stuff on might have even been unrealistic, you know? And so I tell myself, you did a good job. I actually tell myself, you did a good job. Because I need to encourage myself for tomorrow to do the same thing. Right? Emotions are not a weakness. Watch your relationships strengthen once you identify with your feelings more. Well, that's an empath statement if I ever heard of it. I believe these are the codependency cards. And then this one is you just prioritized yourself last again. Why? Oh wow. These aren't even empath cards. We're gonna pull the balance cards in the extended, because we're getting close to the extended here. We are gonna pull. All right, we're gonna pull the blind spot in the extended. Usually I like to tell you what it is before I go there, but I want to do one more thing for the empaths that are not going to go to the extended with us. So these empath activation cards, I mean, you can use them as like a tarot deck, or you can use them as activations. Again, these are shuffled. But what I would really like to do, since we are always constantly reminding ourselves to not prioritize ourselves last, get like an activation, like some kind of clarity. So we'll pull the card for this here, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more in the extended. We'll pull some healing cards. These guys over here are higher self, and we'll also address let me see what we got here: Cancer, Taurus, and Leo. So we'll just individually a little bit incorporated in the message, talk about those signs just a little bit. If you are one of those signs, you do identify with that, or if you're dealing with somebody that's one of those signs, hopefully you'll get some insight over there about, you know, being easier on yourself, honoring yourself more, looking forward, working on, you know, what makes you feel overwhelmed and why. I mean, we literally have overwhelmed and sensory overload here. And, you know, this is talking about better relationships. This is talking about when you're not in that state where you're kind of like blending with people and getting worn out because of the energy that you're letting in, you can actually have better friendships from that. We're going to pull one from these empath activation cards. Let's see what's going on. So we have solar initiation, spelled S-O-U-L. So solar initiation. That's what the card looks like. It's funny because it kind of matches the back. These are the backs. For some reason, we got the card that looks like the back. Sorry. Okay. So, solar initiation. We're going to talk about that in the extended, what that means. A little bit more about what it means to be an empath. I mean, I like to give like more information in these types of readings, especially before I go to the extended, something valuable that you can use. And all I can think of is like stuff I've already told you, which if you've not seen those videos, like I totally get it. But again, you know, we'll take a couple more minutes. Like, let yourself receive support. It's often easier for empaths to give than to receive. Allow others to support you. Experience the pleasure of their caring energy. So, I mean, this isn't even really about like pushing people away. Like a lot of people, but empaths too, they can't like receive compliments. Like you give them a compliment and you get a variety of answers depending on who you're dealing with. Some people will say the same thing over and over again, but some people will just say, oh, you know, that's not, no, and you know, and it's like, if you're one of those people, I'm going to tell you right now that you need to learn how to just say thank you. I don't remember where I saw that recently, because I don't think it was on TV. I literally think it was like at my work or something. But, you know, when somebody gives you a compliment, you answer anything else than like, thank you, or I appreciate that, or, you know, oh, my sister gave it to me, thank you. You need to work on saying thank you. You just say thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate, you know, especially if multiple people are telling you, like you get your nails done, oh, I like your nails, you know, and you kind of get tired of hearing it. Thank you, you know, because especially if you're used to seeing something all the time, but they're not, you know, it could really be something spectacular to them and they're complimenting you. And again, as an empath, you need to receive that. If we're going to go out into the world and we're going to be beat up with all this negative energy, the least we can do is assimilate the positive energy, assimilate the positive energy to the point where we can use that and feed ourselves, because most of the time what we're doing is draining ourselves. Why'd you just prioritize yourself last? Right? So you can handle this. There is a wise saying, you're never given more than you can handle. Tune into your heart to reconnect with your strength. So we talk about this a lot too as empaths. Like that's our guiding light, our heart. If our heart is, you know, if we're messing around with it, it's not going to be as, you know, you're not going to be as open. You know, you'll be open as an empath. You'll still get those emotions and things that you don't want. But that response, that thing that you put out, it won't be like full of love. It will be full of resentment or full of whatever it is that you're not wanting to heal from emotionally. This is your worst enemy. If you can't manage your emotions, you can't handle your emotions, you can't deal with your emotions, you can't process your emotions, you can't transmute your emotions, then emotion is the worst thing for an empath. That's why it gets a bad reputation. You know, I had like 4 thoughts. I'm not going to go into any of them. But stop sensory overload. If too much is coming out at you too fast, decrease your stimulation level. Take a break from people, dim the lights, and savor quietude. I know. I live by myself. It's easy to do that. I come home, I do all that. I do all this. I don't even care. I will use sonar to get to the kitchen. I that's the way I want it to be, especially, you know, when I go into places sometimes where the lights are really bright. I'm like, why? You know, I mean, I get it and whatever, and the fluorescence, but, you know, for people who have gotten migraines, and I am one of those people, I used to actually have like migraines and tension headaches, like they call them combination headaches, right? So for people who have like sensitivity to light or whatever is going on, this is just sensory overload. If you go into a place and there's like 1,000 signs that you're supposed to read, I don't even do that anymore. If there's 1,000 signs, I right now am thinking you're crazy if you expect me to read all those signs. I'm going to pick a couple and then I'm going to figure out where's the bathroom. Honestly. Because again, you know, people are always shoving things at you. It's even worse like online because you have so much at your access at, you know, at your fingertips, literally, that you can get 5 different stories in 5 minutes and they can all suck. And now there goes your mood, you know? So it's one of those things where you need to manage your emotions. When you look forward, we'll probably pull more from the Alice in Wonderland, especially for each sign. But nostalgia? What do you miss? You want to go back to something? If you're growing and healing and moving forward, what do you want to relive? Is there something in your past patterns that you want to redo? I mean, just give it a thought, honestly. Because if there is, and it's part of this reading, then chances are it's emotional. Something that you probably could let go. It might even be easier to let it go than to keep revisiting something, especially if it wasn't all that. And especially if you have something else that's better that's coming to you. Okay, so we're going to move over to the extended. It's going to be one extended, but we're going to talk about Cancer, Taurus, and Leo. We're going to talk about more about being an empath. And we're going to talk about this solar initiation card. And we're going to figure out what our blind spot is. And we're going to get some balance cards too. Some healing cards. So if this is your reading, meet us over there. If not, until we meet again.